One Christmas Eve many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds. Though it wasn't the ringing of the bells, from outside came the sound of hissing steam and squealing metal. I looked through the window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest and then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe and I tiptoed down the stairs out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out, and I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you going to come?" "Where?" I asked. "What, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and we ate candies, and with nougat centers white as snow, we drank hot chocolate, thick and rich as melted chocolate bar. Outside, the lights of town and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express roared northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through the cold, dark forest where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from the train as it thundered through the quietness. We climbed the mountains, high as it seemed we would touch the sky and scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran, along the rolling hills, over the peaks, through the valleys, like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, and the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "there's the North Pole." The North Pole was a huge city, standing alone on top of the world, filled with factories everywhere. Christmas toys were made. At first we saw no elves. "They're gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That's where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift of Christmas?" we all asked. The conductor said, "He will choose one of you." "Look!" shouted one of the children. "The elves!" Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers, the Polar Express could go no further, and we stopped, and the conductor let us out. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, and ringing their silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to me and said, pointing to me, "Let's have this feller here." He jumped in his sleigh, and the conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told one of the elves to cut a bell from the reindeer harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa, and Santa held it high and stood up, holding the silver bell. And he called, The first gift of Christmas. A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me. I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out to the reindeer and cracked his whip. The team charged forward, climbed into the air. Santa circled one time above us and then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. Soon we were back inside the Polar Express and the other children rushed around me and asked to see my bell. I reached in my pocket, but the only thing I felt there was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said, but the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my home, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, "Merry Christmas!" He shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud burst of steam and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Diane and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Diane found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note from Santa. It says, "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Better fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Uh-oh, it's broken." "Yes," said my father, "that's too bad it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents hadn't heard it. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as the years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Diane found one Christmas morning that she could no longer hear the sound from the bell. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, and it does for all who truly believe. Can you hear the bell? Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Yeah.
I may do the bell.
Huh?
I may do the bell.
You want to do it? Well, come up here.
Do you want to ring the bell, Beryl? You want to ring Granny's bell?
That's the bell Santa Claus gave me when
Ring
I
it.
visited the North Pole.
Ooh, do you hear it? Drew, you have a turn.
Hold it like this. Let go.
She just had
Hold it up here. That's the way. Good girl.
Here, let Sissy hold it and ring it for her. Say ring, 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 ring. Yay!
Now, who's going to go to bed on Christmas Eve and wait for Santa Claus?
Me!
me.
Beryl, say me!